Nobody told me that spiritual awakening would break my heart. Have you ever wished that you could unknow something? Not because you wanted to be unconscious, but because once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. I'm Alison Batty Capps of Blossoming Heart Wellness. I am a licensed therapist, a spiritual mentor, and the author of The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World. Today, I want to talk about something that I don't hear discussed very often in spiritual communities. It's this idea that no one prepared me for the grief that would come with awakening. For years, I genuinely believed that spiritual awakening would bring me greater peace. And in many ways, it has. I feel more connected to myself. I feel more connected to nature, more connected to what I call the divine. But something else happened that I wasn't expecting. I've always been a sensitive soul and aware of patterns in the world. And I have generally had a lot of empathy. However, after my spiritual awakening, that awareness deepened, and I found myself noticing suffering in ways that I hadn't before. Not just the beauty in the world, but the immense pain that I see everywhere. I began seeing more clearly the ways that trauma shapes people's lives, the ways children are harmed, the way power is abused, the way individuals are oppressed, the way systems often protect those causing harm more than those that have been hurt, the way that fear is used to influence people, especially in social media, marketing, even in spiritual communities. There have honestly been days when I wish I could stop seeing so much. Not because I want to become less conscious, but because it is painful to realize how much unnecessary suffering exists and how much of it could have been prevented if people had just made different choices. When I started looking for guidance about this experience, I noticed something interesting. Many spiritual communities spend a lot of time talking about awakening. Very few spend time talking about what happens after you awaken. How do you continue living in a world that still contains injustice? How do you stay compassionate without becoming overwhelmed? How do you remain hopeful without denying reality? And I don't have complete answers, but I have begun questioning one assumption. Maybe awakening isn't supposed to make us less human. Maybe it's supposed to help us become more fully human, more willing to see, more willing to feel, more willing to stay present with both beauty and suffering. The challenge is that increased awareness without increased support can become overwhelming. I certainly experienced this in my own nervous system. As a therapist, I understand how our nervous system isn't designed to carry the weight of the entire world. And in today's world, we see more than our nervous system can hold. And as someone who has spent decades studying spirituality, I also know that pretending suffering doesn't exist isn't the answer. So where does that leave us? For me, it means learning that awakening isn't about becoming detached from my humanity. It's about learning how to stay present with reality without letting reality harden my heart or without it overwhelm me so that I feel hopeless. And this isn't easy. Some days I do better than others. There are days I feel deeply connected to life, and there are days I feel discouraged by what I see. This week, I have been sitting in that discouragement. And lately, I have realized something else. I don't think my job is to carry the suffering of the world. I don't think it is yours either. Maybe our responsibility isn't to fix everything. Maybe it's to become people who tell the truth with compassion. People who refuse to manipulate using fear. People who stay intellectually humble. People who continue to choose integrity even when it isn't immediately rewarded. I'm still learning how to live this way. But I no longer believe that awakening is about escaping our humanity. I think it is about learning how to love our humanity, including its grief, including its shadow, without turning away and while holding others accountable. I'd love to hear from you. Has spiritual awakening ever made you more aware of the suffering in the world? And if so, how are you learning to carry this awareness without losing hope? And if this resonates, I hope you'll consider following. Or if you'd like to go deeper, I invite you to read my book, The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World, or go to my website, blossomingheartwellness.com, to learn more about my work and how to work with me. I help others sit with difficult questions, difficult emotions, difficult belief systems so that we can understand ourselves with greater compassion and so that we can relate to one another with more care. I'm sending you deep love and appreciation for who you are.